Thank you, Dr. Shankar. It's really a pleasure to be here and to meet some of my older friends. As Dr. Shankar already said, that the time is too short, and I think I had amalgamated some experiences about entrepreneurship that I had at IIT Kanpur when I was here about a year and a half back. I would like to look at two sides in my presentation. One is, of course, what is there in the last about 10 years in India, which has resulted in what we have today, about 160,000 different startups. And the other is more like a case study based journey that I had at IT and where we are right now on 3 different products that we had started building here. 2 of them are in the technical domain. The other one is more like a design product, which is related to the society as such and making a direct impact with just very simple design-like solutions. So thanks again for inviting me to all the TRIPS organizers, and it's a great summit here that all of us have been having since the last 1 or 2 days, and we are talking about different aspects of innovation, technology, policy, management, all these different issues. So when we look at this whole idea of the Atmanirbhar Bharat or the Reliant India, it started a few years back, and all of us are aware of it, that it was in principle done for 2 reasons. One is to promote what we call indigenous manufacturing, and the other was really to make it a completely digital India. And the whole idea was that the structure proposed was in terms of our strengths which included various aspects. For example, the giant strides that we were planning to be in the economic domain, our demographic vibrancy as such, our focus on tech-driven systems, and also prioritizing sustainable demands, which are very, very inward-looking to our nation. And all this was backed up by the governance in a very, very appropriate manner with what we call entrepreneurship, which was really the backbone of all these different ways of getting into how can you create wealth, how can you create sustainability. And the results are here after, let's say, tens of years today, in terms of the enhanced productivity, the self-reliant nature of economic systems which are there, the unemployment mitigation issues, and also the overall socio-economic development, which are some of the very, very relevant outputs of this backbone of entrepreneurship. And of course, it facilitates the whole Atmanirbharta concept. Now, here I would like to mention the very, very important role that the governance plays today. In fact, all of us, all the institutes have very good incubation centers. There are various initiatives of the government. There is a department which looks into all these how you guide the startups, form the startups, also classify the startups into being recognized or not. And also there are expert advisory committees which will do guide directions, tone setting, which direction the science would move forward. There is of course a lot of help provided by the most localized incubators, which will not only guide the entrepreneurs in an appropriate manner, but also provide the necessary financial and legal support. And then of course there are bodies which are looking into the recognition part, what is the performance part of the startups, and the various other issues related to the success of startups in the economy. Now, having said that, I started this back about maybe 2018 or 19, and I had already spent about tens of years here at IIT to start this. And what would be the role of an engineer getting translated into entrepreneur was sort of felt by me, and I want to share some reflections, in my presentation that I'm going to make today on this. So when I look at this track that is available to all of us, the SMT developers, and in fact we have heard various distinguished people, Dr. Pradeep, Dr. Kulkarni prior, who has all gone into this way to go ahead and take their products to the market. There are some showstoppers along the way, and there are also some areas where we really feel blessed as to why we are doing this startup and how it's transforming India. So the various things that are needed, in my opinion, for a person, an engineer, to start this transformation process, and the very first step that is needed there is to have a right product idea, which is going to be important, which is going to be sustainable, and then of course you need some training on it, because not everybody is trained in the same manner as a businessman is, and you have to sort of see how to arrange the resources and everything so that you can propagate the idea for a longer time so that it can go from the development phase into the business phase. And that's where there is a need for training, there's a need for sustenance, for organizational infrastructure, and also, for the availability of the requisite financial and the legal support. These are the various issues related to the success or failure of any startup system. Now, when I look at that aspect, of course, some of the understanding that I had along the way of entrepreneurial framework is that we got in the process of prototype to product, which is one of the major emphasis. But again, for a young person in this area, it is very important to understand even the business setup and how the businesses kind of accept or reject things which are important or unimportant. So for that, it is important to keep looking for options which can sustain your cause to go ahead. And I will show you through 3 case studies that we did similar kind of stances. I'm not going to be very technically heavy on it, but I can just show point by point where we've had what, so that you could have an idea that how a long-term follow-up on a certain idea could actually lead into something which is close to a product. So basically the idea is that on one side, we are developing the product in a scientific manner, on another side, we are understanding the business landscape. And these two have to be together so that you can have something which is more viable in terms of applications, viable in terms of acceptability for the market. And of course, everything goes with the process of product scale-up. And there are regulatory agencies which you have to cross over in order to do that. So I am going to sort of explain 3 cases where we have had some footprint. One is the case of an early dengue detection system, that is TEST-EASY. This is a rapid card that we have developed, which has gone past clinical trials, now waiting CSIR-CSIO certification. It has given me a scope to have a pipeline which I can today invoke anytime to have other multiple problem statements embedded in a similar manner where products can churn out. The other one is a little more, so this domain, by the way, is very organized because you have good options of having clinical partners. They can give you good strategies to go ahead, and you also have good regulatory standard framework which can actually lead the way. There are some unorganized domains, and this is the second case study where we started looking at textile effluent water and how you can remediate that water with simple advanced oxidation processes. And there is a scale at this time of this particular product, which is more like a pilot scale in Jaipur in a certain company. But there are various challenges in this area, and I will show some of those challenges, why such products may move a little slower on the way. And then of course the third one is one which is just a design initiative, which is today very large impact in terms of the product reaching more than about 2 lakh people across 90 states in the country, which is one of my students who has done this desk kit, which is just simple design solution to aid the people, the students who are in low infrastructure area and they have posture problems, seating problems related to a simple thing of writing and reading, in schools. So the first case is that of what we call the TEST-EASY, and this product was envisioned way back in 2018-19. There were not very high casualties in cases of related to dengue deaths because of severe hemorrhagic shocks, and we were looking at an early marker MS1 through which we would detect dengue in the detectable levels that it has. So the first thing that we wanted to look at is that what is the market space and where we can launch a product, and we found out that in case of primary infections, the NS1 levels in patients are too high and they are recognizable. All the products are addressing that market. But supposing the person is infected once and comes back to the clinic again, then their levels fall down because of the immunorecognition process, and there was no such sensitive product which would trace in the area where we could even screen the secondary patients. Now, from a doctor's point of view, the problem is that if it doesn't have reliability in terms of the yes-no answer that such kit provides, they start disbelieving the kit. And therefore, if one part of the product is only catering to only the primary patients and the secondary patients are always a negative, okay, so therefore the doctor doesn't have confidence in it. So we started this journey and we started actually looking at the markets. We looked at the various membranes, the designs that are there, the kinetics that is there between antigen antibody, the printing processes, and we started finding out that what can we do as interventions where we can change the LOD to the level of secondary patients, And then also through design and through materials. And then in step 2, would like to do extensive clinically, tried things so that it is belief-worthy for the hospitals. So, the idea here is that this chip is targeted for a 10 nanogram per milliliter level of detection of the NS1 early dengue marker among patients. Now, when we look at what we started doing, I will now like to sort of highlight the development process of the test easy, which started off with mapping, again, the available technology, planning interventions. Then we looked at, we carried out some material and geometrical design interventions, like developing of a new composite with a higher stability, a better active site density, and also tried to change from straight to tapered membrane design just to see if there is some sample focusing, and we could arrive at the limit of detection of about 10 nanogram per milliliter just by looking at something which was a dead gap, which was not there in the market. So this is not rocket science, but something which is pertinent to the use case that you have in the market. So we carried out detailed optimization trials looking at primary, secondary antibody pairing with the antigen as well as the conjugate materials. We carried out taper optimization studies as well as some other design processes. We actually had extensive printability tests in the in the terms of how antibody lines are established, laid out, how the control lines are laid out. We sought the right production parameters for the printing process, the cassette design, and we carried out the first prototype development from a lab scale, which we tested through very discrete samples, which are spiked samples in serum. Then started a journey after this, where we wanted to find out how we can clinically explore it, and there is where the startup ecosystem really helped us. We incubated a company, and there are scale-up grants like BIRAC, which today give this kind of space where how a technology can be taken to that large scale is sort of facilitated. We got a big grant for this, and then we actually did a lot of clinical validation studies and some stability criteria which were accelerated through the WHO guidelines at 2 different centers. One is ILBS at Vasant Kunj, and then the AIMS Jodhpur. And there were some insightful things which came during these clinical trials, which led to the repeated iterations, the repeated design of such a product. And in fact, what we observed is that with the standard ELISA that we are comparing in the product that we have has more or less similar cutoff ranges as a ELISA. In fact, in some cases, it has even hit upon lower cutoff ranges because ELISAs are actually representing only the primary patients. They are designed in that manner. Typically what they do is that when the ELISA looks at a patient and declares it a false negative and still symptoms are there, the cases are taken into RT-PCR mode, and again a secondary treatment is or secondary diagnostic is done to confirm whether the patient has or not. So some of these challenges we saw was meeting well in case of our product. In fact, these are tested results in terms of the specificity, sensitivity of the samples based on about 1,000 clinical trials carried out at 2 centers. And what they have declared it is that this is a good product in terms of its reliability. Initially we did accelerated tests. For example, you can actually see that if you open the package and then keep it for let's say 12 hours, whether the chip works or not. Or for example, in some tests we do that, let's say we keep it for 3 months and see if the chip is performing or not. So these things, are done in an accelerated manner, are really not believed at the doctor's level. And in fact, they have now tried this chip for more than over a year, year and a half, and 2 years. And now they are completely certain that there is repeatability after a year, year and a half of production or date of production of the particular chip. So it takes a while for something to be established and stabilized. Now, in fact, we are in a mode where we are actually talking to various initiatives, either B2C or B2B type of initiatives, and this product is ready for the market after so long. So this is one system that I would like to just the pipeline that was made is now very relevant because the same pipeline I can invoke for something like hepatitis A and E or hepatitis C, which is a much greater problem which has come up today. And we are in fact in the process, because now the partners, the clinical partners are quite convinced that there is a good working system which is repeatable and robust in nature. Something that is just half done and sold to the market may create something which is in the bad taste. So all startups are encouraged here to sort of follow this 2-3 years of robustness before you get into a complete product scenario. I think Shankar has already told about the timeline. I just wanted to highlight just one or two quick things. This is another area where the structuring is not that. I'll just tell you what the problem was, that this effluent business is first of all not a very important mandate, although we may say waste to wealth or something, but the value that the effluent business is bringing in the table to businessmen is close to zero. I mean, they are in fact better off to sort of pay off the pollution control boards to give a better report rather than doing effluent treatment themselves. And this is an activity I have followed for the last 6-7 years in 2 different work centers. One is Jodhpur and one is a company in Jaipur, through which we are doing this textile effluent remediation. The idea here is that in the conventional setup that is designed for all the combined effluent treatment plants, there is a huge problem of pH variation, because of which the color doesn't get remediated, and most of the time this water gets into the field with color and it creates issues of photosynthetic life of water bodies, etc. And the color has to be somehow gotten rid of. So we started this initiative at a pilot scale where we would just simply use advanced oxidation processes rather than the standard, primary, secondary and tertiary processes. And we would just make colorless sample which would be used somehow by the industry. And there is some challenges in it. I'll just quickly run through what the process is. So we have in this process a coagulation step. There is an acid modified sand filter which actually takes care of the dye that is being remediated from the textile effluent, and then the finished product gets into a photocatalyzer which kind of works on just simple photocatalytic materials, and they are like a S-type serpentine reactor that we have designed, and we have simply scaled it up to the level of a 100 kV plant, which now we are for the last about 5-6 years studying in terms of the degradation pathways, how we can do decision making, how we can do control of the valving, so that we can have a reasonability in terms of the output that is there. Now this output again has a problem of not qualifying the MOEFCC guidelines, but what we have found out is that this output can be circulated back into the system and used for things like screen washing, etc., where water saving can be made because you're not using fresh water anymore. So that's a strategy that we have used in this plant. In fact, we have done a lot of studies, and I'll just quickly scan through it. So we have done the complete design, we have done fabrication, we have done wherever a B2B thing is needed, we don't work on something which other people have developed. In fact, Sandeep has supplied some filters for this particular plant where we are putting it at the end of the process. So we are only working on what select things which we have capability with. We have done various characterization experiments of modulating the catalysts, and then we have done various studies related to absorption, behavior, finding out what goes in the soup, because there are all sort of dyes with an extreme amount of challenge. So we have tried to decipher to some extent what kind of molecular degradation pathways are there, and this has happened over the last 4 or 5 years. And then also some recyclability and regeneration studies where we see how the filter life can be increased and what kind of cycle of filter replacement can be there. Then we have worked on extensive data coming out from field with IoT and other setups, and through historical data and the acquired data, we have tried to now sort of see whether we can model the plant well. In one instance, we found out that because we cannot really look at the molecular side in a real time, we try to have some strategies borrowed from machine learning and chemometric analysis processes, where we are simply taking some data which is more real time from the field and comparing it with the molecular data on a historical side to find out a non-physical space through which we are controlling the system and seeing what is the last level degradation which is there in that space. And this is used as a decision support of how long the photocatalytic process would be. And finally, doing all these studies, we are trying to establish something which is at least having some utility in terms of giving circular, contributing to the circular economy and giving back the thing. Sorry. Yeah, so giving back the sort of remediated water to have some usability. So it's very difficult at this level to get standardization happen in this particular process. But yes, there is a need in a few industries in the local region. They have shown some interest, and we are also going to the Bhatti cluster to try and evaluate if some more industries can take this particular process. So, having said that, again in such kind of unstructured environment, there is a huge need of continued funding support. Thanks to the Abdul Kalam Fellowship, which kind of fueled some of these activities. And then we are looking at now partnership whether industry is willing to give, and by this industry which has allowed us to set this plant and run this plant, is continuously giving us support in terms of land and in terms of electricity. So now the new partners that are being evaluated want to have this plant to be shifted into a certain other area where we can have a similar kind of activity with a new set of affluents in a new region. So having said that, the third instance that I wanted to show is a more simple design solution, which is now a product. This is something related to just what the students generally face in low infrastructure schools. As you see here, that in most of the cases, because of the lack of desks and chairs, there is a huge problem related to how education is done, and for that, a very simple solution has been evaluated and constructed. A supply chain has been developed. We call it a desk kit, where there is a bag with a table, a foldable table, and here is like a solution where it can give some of these better comfortable seating posture for the student. Spine is kept straight while doing the reading and writing activity. And in a way, it has synced very well into the business space. We've done a complete ergonomic analysis for this design, seeing that what are the different height aspects to develop the supply chain as regards the Indian cohort of students. And finally, I would like to just say that the impact of this product we find is reasonable in terms of reach to the students. In fact, the student after doing PhD has continued this as a career. He now is completely on his entrepreneurship. He's supplied about 200,000 students with this kit, 19 states across the country. He's done a lot of dissemination to places like Iraq and Pakistan. This is more like a corporate social sort of responsibility that we're doing. And so what I wanted to say, that with this experience, what I feel is that structured environment is easier and design-related simpler solutions are easier. But when you talk of a slightly unstructured environment and trying to get into increased technical sort of intervention, the pathway is slightly different. And it needs a lot more support because some very important things related to how the industry feels, whether they should use the treated water in the real product, for printing, is a major concern. Nobody is interested to use that water in terms of washing the clothes, which come out of the textile industry, because they say that the dye will not be there. So there are some apprehensions which need to be set aside. And these are what some challenges are in the field. So I just wanted to share this journey. Thank you very much again. I know I've sort of over-consumed my time frame, but if there are any questions, yeah. Thank you.